thank you very much for joining us today for the powerful toolkit of savvy BIM managers. My name is Richard Taylor, a technical evangelist here at ID8 Software. We also have Steve Beaver, who's the Director of Solution Development at Eagle Point Software, and Phil Reed, who's the co-founder of Reed Thomas, and he's the global go-to-market partner for Enscape. So we've got some really exciting presenters and software to show you today. Also, my colleague Sash Kazaminajad is manning the questions. So if you have questions, you find that question panel, please feel free to type questions and we'll reserve some time at the end to answer those questions. We've got a lot of information to cover. So that introduction is about 5 minutes. Then we're going to be talking about BIM productivity with ID8 Software and spending about 15 minutes on that. And then looking at the e-learning and upskilling with Pinnacle series from Eagle Point Software. So Steve's going to be talking about that for around 15 minutes. And then last, but certainly not least, my good friend Phil will be talking about real-time rendering in VR for AEC design with Enscape, also for about 15 minutes. And then, like I said, we'll have a wrap-up session and a Q&A session at the end. So each one of us will introduce ourselves when we start the presentation. So I just wanted to thank you to Steve and thank you to Phil for being part of this presentation. And like I said, I think it's probably best just to introduce yourself when we go to your particular part of the presentation. So with that, we would like to hear from you. And I'm going to launch a poll here real quickly. And I'd just like to know, like, how many of you are using ID8 software? How many of you are using Enscape? How many of you are using our Pinnacle series? Or how many of you are using all the above or none of the above? So we'll wait a few minutes for people to answer that, get you started here in the interaction of the webinar and share. So you can see that we've actually got, quite a few that are using Enscape. Again, Enscape, I think, is one of the premier rendering engines in the industry out there. So that's great. Quite a few using ID8 software, quite a few using Pinnacle, and I like to see the all of the above. And it's okay if you're none of the above. I mean, we're here. Hopefully you're here to learn some things too. So I'm going to go ahead and hide that poll. As I said, introduce quickly about me. My name is Richard Taylor with ID8 Software. My background is in architecture, and I was fortunate enough to be part of the original team at Revit Technology back in the day. So was Phil Reed. I'm sure he's going to be talking about that as well. Then I worked for Autodesk for a number of years as one of the Revit product managers. I've worked in both large and small architecture firms and other software companies as well. So you can always feel free to email me at richard.taylor@id8software.com. You can follow me on Twitter, and I'd be more than happy to connect with you on LinkedIn as well. So ID8 Software is all about simplifying your Revit data challenges. We create 5 add-on solutions that are tailored specifically for specific workflows within Revit. And those 5 solutions are ID8 BIM Link for data management around Excel workflows. We've also included our ID8 Automation for BIM Link, which takes some of those extractions, those workflows, and automates them, allows you to, say, schedule it for 2 o'clock in the morning and have it run on a number of different models. And then our ID8 Sticky allows you to link Word, PDF, Excel, we call them non-BIM documents. They might be specifications or maybe Excel data sheets that you've already created that need to be part of your project. So you can link those into Revit and keep those up to date. And then our ID8 Explorer is really the project browser on steroids. It allows you to search, filter, select items very easily, and it includes warnings management, which I'm going to show here in just a minute. ID8 Style Manager allows you to manage and edit Revit styles. These are the styles that may get copied into your project from families or other projects that you copy data from one to another, and all of a sudden your styles are completely out of control. They're not meeting your standards. So this is a way for you to analyze, assess where they're being used, and being able to merge and clean up those styles easily. And then finally, ID8 Apps is a series of productivity tools for all Revit users. 9 tools that are specifically designed to help increase productivity and efficiency for every Revit user. And again, I'm going to show some examples of that today as well. So ID8 Software, even though we have software in the name, we are not just software. We're very proud of delivering excellent software, but we also deliver our online help. We have educational videos. We have blogs that we're doing every single week, webinars such as this, events. We do ID8 software user groups. So we're really connected to the community and providing you the tools that you need, not just to deliver software, but to really use and utilize that software effectively. We have getting started guides. We are supporting the last 4 releases of Revit, which currently is 2018 through 2021, but you know, pretty soon, probably in mid-April, we're going to be supporting Revit 2022. And then with our software that we deliver, we are delivering things to get you going very quickly. So it's with ID8 BIM Link, we deliver almost 300 sample BIM link definitions to get you started. We have rules that we deliver for renumber and view creator. We have sample documents, Word documents, Excel documents, and PDF documents when it comes to ID8 Sticky. We have deliver a sample warnings ranking file with our Ideate Explorer. And we have sample workflows. As I talked about with BIM Link, you know, we're supporting many different workflows, and we have sample files for health checks, for quantity takeoff, and others. And then we do comprehensive testing with large data sets from around the world. And I just wanted to mention that, you know, that last, you know, in parentheses there, for our Q2, which is our upcoming release, right, that will be in a couple months here, or a couple months, depending on when Autodesk releases. We are planning to release all of our products in 6 languages. And we've done this with our style manager. We're delivering in French, Japanese, and Spanish. So we've started that last year, but we're going to continue that and have that be available in multiple languages. So that's a really big push for us. We're really excited about that because we do have customers all over the world. So, hey, why do we do what we do, right? Well, you know, the thing is, we're very passionate about the architecture, engineering, construction, and owner ecosystem, right? And most of the employees of ID8 Software are actually from that environment, right? Like myself, you know, being an architect by training. Sash, who's on the line or on the phone here, is also architect background, registered licensed architect in California and Montana, I think. Sash, I hope I'm not saying that wrong. Yeah. So, you know, again, we come from the industry. We're very passionate about it, and we do listen. We're constantly looking at the Revit forums, the Revit ideas, you know, just discussion groups, Autodesk University. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And so we take great pride in developing tools that address these persistent challenges faced by Revit users. You know, we love Revit. We think it's fantastic, but we realize it doesn't meet the needs for every specific workflow that you may need to do. And, you know, there are gaps in Revit. And so we're filling those workflow gaps. That's why we're doing what we do. So I just wanted to show you a couple examples here of things like where we look at the Revit forums and we look at the roadmap, and we look at, all, you know, like I said, all this sort of data out there in the industry. So here's a request on the Revit Ideas forum for full integration with Excel, right? And this has been around for quite a while, and it's got a number of votes. So we developed ID8 BIM Link. Actually, we're very proud of this. Over 10 years ago, it's an industry leader. So, I mean, it's a proven technology solution that's been used all around the world. And again, it's not just for editing data parameters. Sash and myself both have a number of presentations where we say beyond the schedule, where we're talking about revision management, quantity takeoffs, doing health checks with, you know, we even include a sample Excel file for that. Health checks for, you know, what AutoCAD DWG files do you have in your project? What work sets have you used? What model lines? What detail lines? I mean, the list goes on and on. So, you know, I would encourage you, if you're not familiar with BIM Link, to really look at some of the workflows that it supports. We can swap components, one door to another, one structural member to another structural member. We can extract coordinate data that's just not available in a Revit schedule. We can actually create new elements, create new sheets, create new views on those sheets, create revision sequences, and that list goes on and on. And we have a number of videos for project setup. So again, I just wanted to sort of really drive home the fact that it's not just for data editing. It's really supporting a number of different workflows. So another request is that selection in Revit is important, but it's difficult, right? And in addition to selection being, difficult to do, we need a way to be able to understand our warnings. So the solution we developed is ID8 Explorer. And again, it's a 12-year industry leader. So this isn't something that, we just developed, 2 months ago. It's been used all over the world, allowing you to, as I said earlier, it's kind of like a project browser on steroids, allowing you to explore, select elements, navigate to sheets and views, query based on parameter values in Revit. And then, of course, we've introduced our ID8 Warnings Manager. So what I'd like to do is give you just a peek of that, basically, is that all the ID8 software tools are available under the ID8 software ribbon. I can start Explorer, and the dialog will appear. And like I said, it's like a project browser on steroids. It's showing me so many things. So I wanted to highlight here that it's showing you, DWG files, things that the project browser just doesn't show. We have 173 AutoCAD DWG files that we might want to review. I want to highlight on the Warnings tab. We can look at warnings based on high ranked, medium, or low, and we can color code them. In this case, I'm highlighting on those 2 floors that overlap. It's hard for me to see, so what I'm going to do is use the isolate tool in Revit to isolate just those 2 floor slabs, and then I can actually select and make the change. So the idea here is that you can interact with Revit while the dialog is open. It's completely what we call non-modal, being able to work in any Revit command. So I was able to fix that warning, and the warning goes away. Another warning here that's a high-ranked warning is I have duplicate instances. So I'm going to right-click and basically say I want to retain the originals. Right from here, I can delete those, and now that high-ranked warning goes away, and the alert icon is no longer displayed. And so I can go back to Explore and continue to sort of select and isolate elements. So again, that rankings file of what is a high ranked, low ranked, or medium warning is completely customizable. But we do provide some sample files for you. Another great request that we saw, let's make a simple table in Revit. You have this sort of non-BIM data that you need to be able to display. And so the solution is ID8 Sticky. Again, 6-year industry leader. You can link Excel documents, PDF documents, Word documents directly into your model and keep them up to date. And with Excel data, we have 2 different methods. You can actually display it in Revit as a schedule, a native Revit schedule element, or you can display it as a Revit image that we also, again, keep up to date. So it's really important to be able to include this data very easily. Another great request, visibility in Revit is hard. We've actually uncovered almost 60 different ways that you can hide an element in Revit, in a view. So how do you understand? I mean, in Revit, there's the reveal hidden elements, but it only shows you a very small percentage of why things are hidden. So we developed our ID8 Xray, which is part of those productivity tools that I mentioned to you. We also have sheet and view tools. You'll see there we have a renumber tool, a smart delete tool, but this Xray was developed to help you understand why something's not visible in a particular view. So if we look at this, again, I'm going to go to the ID8 software ribbon panel. I'm going to select on Xray. And why aren't the plumbing fixtures visible, right? They should be visible in this view. I can't figure out why. All right. So what I do is I have this wizard that allows me to select items based on a number of different criteria. In this case, I'm going to do a box. It's going to show me all elements that are within that box where I can search for, let's say, plumbing fixtures. In this case, here's my plumbing or my toilet that I want, and I'm going to basically tell Xray to find it. So not only is there one, not only is there two, but there's actually three different methods that have hidden this element. So what I'm going to do is hide hidden element, like someone did a right click, hide in view. Someone hid it by the category, so I'm actually fixing these one by one. And then I'm actually opening up the workset dialog to open the plumbing workset. So you'll notice there that there's different selections. There's a show me, and then there's actually a fix. And so I can control exactly, how I'm sort of interacting with this. And again, just like I said with ID8 Explorer, you can work with any Revit command while you're working in this ID8 Xray, which is really nice. So, I thought this quote was just excellent, kind of summarizing, what we try to bring to the table is that we're really trying to develop, software that meets the common needs or desires of the Revit users beyond those out-of-the-box features in Revit. And like I said, we have so many people that are using our software to fill those Revit gaps. So if you're not familiar with ID8 software, what we have is a special promotion that allows you to try all 5 solutions as a standalone license for 6 months for $500. And that $500 can then be used as a coupon, sort of a virtual coupon, to an annual subscription to our software. So that's something you might want to think about. You can always download a 14-day trial of any of our ID8 software solutions at www.id8software.com, which we'd encourage you to do that. You can download a trial and sort of test them for yourselves. And then speaking of licenses, I just wanted to also mention that we have a network FlexLM, which has been kind of the traditional way that Autodesk has, in the past anyway, done network licenses. So we support that. But we've also introduced a new cloud technology. So you don't need to have a server. It actually is not a named server either, like the way that Autodesk is doing. It's very easy, cloud technology. So if you're interested in that, there's also information on our website about that. And then of course, there is the standalone. And I always get this question, do you have to buy all 5 together? You can buy individually, you can purchase, and you can mix and match any one of these to meet your particular needs. So I put on my timer. I have 14 minutes and 14 seconds, so I think I did pretty good under the 15. I am now going to switch to Steve from Pinnacle Series and Eagle Point Software, and I want to thank you very much, Steve. And I'm going to switch over the presenter.
We should be good to go right away. So nice to speak with all of you. Richard, good stuff there. Hopefully I can stick to the same amount of time as you did. So let's start a little bit about me. Who is Steve Beaver? So I've been in the AEC industry for about 15 years now. My background, unfortunately, comes from the civil engineering space, but for the last, about 10 years, I've been spending most of my time on the architectural side of the world. For about half of my career, I was an Autodesk trainer. So I traveled around all across North America, giving training classes on a variety of different Autodesk products. But really, my passion fits really nicely with Eagle Point's passion. Our goal is to really help AEC organizations fully leverage their people and technology. There's a lot of technology out in the world today. In the AEC space alone, there's a ton of technology and new stuff's coming out all the time. How can we help the world? How can we help AEC organizations really leverage that and make their people efficient with that technology? Really, that's my passion in life. Now, with that said, Pinnacle Series is what we're going to be talking about here today. Pinnacle Series is nothing new. It's been around since 2006. Some people get confused. What's Eagle Point Software versus Pinnacle Series? In reality, it's just different names. It's the same thing. Eagle Point Software is the company. Pinnacle Series is the product. And it's an e-learning solution for the AEC industry. A few metrics here about Pinnacle Series. It was created back in 2006, but it really took off over the last 6-7 years or so. And across the world, we have 200,000 plus users, made up of 2,000 or so customers. And we also have 20 plus partners around the world. So if you're not calling in from the United States or Canada, we have reseller partners all across the world that can help you and service you with Pinnacle Series as well. Now, more importantly than all that though, why does Pinnacle Series really exist? That's what I want to talk about for a few moments. And then I'm going to go in and give you maybe a 5-minute kind of tour of the most important features in Pinnacle Series or things that people really like to leverage. So as I was prepping for this, I was trying to put myself into a BIM manager's shoes. And quite rapidly, I realized BIM managers have a lot of responsibilities, right? You have a lot of things you need to work on. And we focus Pinnacle Series on 3 main areas, 3 main responsibilities that BIM managers typically always are in charge of. Number 1 is the concept of continuous learning. So I just got done saying there's all kinds of technology out in the AEC communities with Revit, as well as, of course, Ideate and Enscape and so many others. We need to teach our people how to use the tools, right? That's pretty obvious. There's a lot of different ways to do training. However, it's challenging to train a large staff or a large team of people. That's what Pinnacle Series is really good at. It's teaching people those picks and clicks. And as things get updated, new technologies come out, or as Revit 2022 comes out onto the market, how do we teach those people all of those new skills? That's one area that Pinnacle Series really targets. Now, teaching the picks and clicks is one thing, but teaching a new architect or a new person coming into your organization how you do work, your company's best practices and your workflows, that's a whole different animal there. That's where we get into the idea of helping BIM managers capture and share knowledge and disseminate that across the organization. Typically in any architectural firm or any AEC organization, you run into different pockets of expertise where there's certain people in the organization, especially BIM managers, that hold a lot of the knowledge and hold that expertise. What we want to do with the Pinnacle Series is capture that knowledge, get it into a system so that you can share it across the organization very, very easily. And you can also track how people are going through that and how they're using your workflows, how they're using your tips and tricks to make sure they're following your standards. And then lastly, and arguably the most important thing here, is our goal is to help organizations increase productivity with the Pinnacle Series. Now, we do this a lot of different ways. The main way that I want to focus on today, though, is as a BIM manager, a lot of the not all the responsibility, but some of the responsibility has to do with answering questions, putting out fires, solving problems that your staff are having with the technology. And that all kind of falls back onto making people efficient and productive. One of the biggest frustrations that I had, I used to be in a support role myself. One of the biggest frustrations I had was answering the same question for the 15th time, putting out the same fire 3 weeks later from different people, but always having to solve the same problem over and over again. That was inefficient. That was not an efficient spend of my time. I should have been working as a BIM manager. I should have been working on more important things, pushing the organization forward with new standards, new technologies, et cetera. Answering that same question for the 30th time, that doesn't help the organization. So again, Pinnacle Series turns into the central warehouse of information with your tips and your troubleshooting notes so that people can solve problems on their own and come to you with new problems that they might have. So that's why Pinnacle Series exists. Now I just want to spend a couple minutes in here, give you a quick tour of this, kind of live and on the spot here. And I'm going to point out a few things that are new that current customers might be interested in. And I'm also going to hit on the main areas that all customers leverage. So what you're looking at is the home page of the Pinnacle Series platform. And it's a customizable e-learning solution. So a lot of it is pretty self-explanatory. The most important thing to start with, though, is over on the left side, you're going to see these asset libraries. Pinnacle Series comes preloaded with a ton of learning materials across the AEC space. So if you just kind of browse the list over here on the left side, from Adobe down to the bottom here, you can see a lot of different titles. The most notable ones to point out today, of course, we have content on Enscape. We have a whole library on ID8 software. So Richard just got finished explaining kind of at a high level all these different add-ons here. We have training material on all of those. And then if we dive into Autodesk, which is of course one of our largest ones, so we can see a huge library of training material across these products. And if we dive into one, you're going to notice all of our training materials go back in time. You can turn these off. I hope you're not using Revit 2012 anymore. You can, of course, turn those off. But inside of these libraries, there's a war chest of information. From, in this case with Revit, we have 14 learning paths, 12 workflows, 200 plus videos and documents teaching people, architects, the right way of using Revit. And second most important thing is all of this is customizable. So if you as the BIM manager have a handful of tips and tricks, you have 20 videos that you are storing on a network server somewhere or on SharePoint somewhere, get that into Pinnacle Series so it's all in one location next to the 200 plus videos that we have in the system already. Now, e-learning is nothing new. With COVID, over the last year or so, e-learning is becoming kind of the norm in terms of training. So as I jump in here, I'll just kind of give you a preview. This is the ID8 Apps course inside of Pinnacle Series, which I can go in, or I can assign this out to my staff to learn how to use the ID8 apps. And it's going to walk me through a pre-described curriculum, guiding me through, step by step on how to use these technologies. We all understand that nowadays. What I want to talk about real quickly here is how Pinnacle Series is special. So let me change the topic a little bit. Notice over here on this course that I'm enrolled in, there's a little trophy in the upper left-hand corner. This course has actually been personalized for me. I took an assessment, think of it maybe yesterday, I took an assessment on Revit, and automatically Pinnacle Series enrolled me into this Revit Architecture Fundamentals learning path. But you'll notice I wasn't enrolled in the whole thing. I was actually enrolled into 11 out of the 18 courses. So I actually passed out of 7 courses there because I knew a little bit of information, right? I wasn't a novice, I wasn't a newbie. I knew some things, so I can focus my time and energy on the areas that I'm weak in. And we actually go into all of the courses and we identify for the user where they should focus their time. So each one of these lessons that's grayed out, I knew that information. I can focus my time and energy on these exercises or these practice sessions, these videos that are kind of targeted at my skills gaps. So from a BIM manager's point of view, that's a great way to upskill your staff, but not training everybody in the same way. Train them on their individual weak areas. Now, moving along into something that's beyond just the traditional e-learning, we also have a concept of what we call workflows in Pinnacle Series. What workflows are basically best practices. And we have a whole library of these preloaded into the system, but these are also customizable by you. So if you have a very specific and important standard that you want to roll out to your organization, the default way of doing that is in a PDF document or in a Word document, and you share it out on a file server somewhere. So it's pretty static. It's kind of the old way of doing things. What we want you to do is create a very interactive flow chart, as you can see here, that'll guide the user through the practice. You can track all of this too to see who's using these workflows, who's not using them. And something that's really interesting here is as the user is actually walking through the instructions here, we've tied into Revit itself to help the user get to the right command at the right time. So for example here, as the user is following through step number 3, if I click this link, it's actually going to go into Revit for me and run the command at the right time. And of course, I haven't saved my project since we started this webinar, so it gave me a little reminder there. But regardless, it ran Revit, it ran the right command for me, and now it's giving me instructions basically on how to follow through with that set of commands. So really, quite a simple kind of topic there, but it's really powerful. How do you set up new projects? How do you close out projects? What are your quality control practices inside of the organization? Document that in the right way so that people have a place to get to it, that it interacts with the actual technology, and it's all trackable. That's really, really important. Now, the last topic, we were talking about learning, knowledge sharing. Productivity is the last thing here. So how often have you gotten the same question from the same person or the same question from multiple people, and you're constantly putting out those fires? That's what Pinnacle Series is all about. Whether I use the search engine to maybe search through the information to find a quick video to teach me how to do something, or a tip or a trick that you uploaded into here, all of that is searchable. We also have this area called work groups that can provide a project-based way of training and a project-based way of getting access to good information. So here on this, fictitious construction project, here are all my standards and best practices that I should follow on this project. And then really lastly here, let me jump back into Revit for a moment. We also have this plugin called Related Learning Topics. So as the user is actually in here and running commands, maybe I'll run the stairs command right now, you'll see that the Related Learning Topics has populated 3 or 4 videos that will teach me specifically how to run that sequence of commands there. If I change this one last time to work sets, here's a few videos to teach me how to do that, or a couple of documents or workflows. Your content, any tips or tricks or troubleshooting notes that you load into the system, that'll be presented in the Related Learning Topics as well there. So it's really a contextual way of learning versus going through a pre-described learning path or course, as we saw earlier. So all of that is basically Pinnacle Series in a nutshell. Now, realizing a few of you already are using Pinnacle Series, just wanted to point out one thing that has come out relatively recently that you may not have seen. Over here in the Asset Libraries area, just wanted to point out this new library here, AIA accredited. We are doing a lot of work now with various organizations that accredit training, and AIA is of course a very, very important one here. And inside of this library are all the different courses and learning paths that we have accredited through AIA. And as people go through this, for example, if I go through the 5 courses of this Revit skills course, they can go ahead and submit their certificate into AIA to get one learning unit from AIA, there on each one of these courses there. So if you already are a Pinnacle Series user, I'd encourage you to kind of review that to help you getting those AIA credits, which is of course very important for your license here. So yeah, Pinnacle Series in kind of a nutshell there. I didn't time it like Richard, so hopefully I'm on track, but really the system is here to help you help your staff use these technologies better in a number of different ways. So I want to thank you very much, and we will bring on Phil next to talk about Enscape.
Yeah, and that's so perfect, Steve, because we talk about we can make the best software in the world, which we think we do, but if people don't know how to use it, then what good is it, right? We don't want our software sitting on the shelf. We want people to use it and learn it, and that's where I think that Pinnacle Series comes into play. Phil, do you have presenter rights now? Excellent, you do. I want to introduce Phil Reed. Again, like I said, Phil and I go back to the Revit days. Yeah, now it's like 20 years ago, right, Phil?
Yep. 20 years ago.
So I would like to introduce Phil Reed.
Oh, thank you very much, Rich. Thank you very much, everyone, for allowing the Enscape team to contribute here. I think this is just really great. I've been working with the Enscape team for a long time, and I want to do a couple of things today. First of all, I'm going to push the start button. We want to talk about what is Enscape, what's changed in the latest release, and then some really useful tips and tricks for you BIM managers out there to share with your team. The session's being recorded, so I'm going to go pretty quickly. I'm not going to go too fast, but I'm not going to go too slow, and you'll be able to go back in time and actually review these tips. And then if you have any specific questions, as Rich mentioned, you can reach out to any of us and send a personal email for clarification. So first of all, what is Enscape? Without any confusion, Enscape is the least expensive, most beautiful, easiest to use, and fastest real-time visualization tool in the world. It's absolutely fantastic. It's easy to use because you're not changing the behavior that you've already invested in your design tool. You're just letting Enscape render the results of your design decisions. That makes it super, super easy. It also works with Revit, SketchUp, Rhino, Archicad, and Vectorworks. One license works with all applications, so that's really useful as well. So what's changed in the latest release? Okay, first of all, you're noticing I'm specifying, I'm working completely in Revit today, but a lot of the tool set here in the Enscape ribbon has moved. It's moved into the Enscape window, and the reason for that is because if you're using Revit, Rhino, and SketchUp, which we know a lot of our design teams jump between design tools during the day, you're seeing a different user experience. And now all of that has been unified, which dramatically increases your workflow, keeps things familiar. Okay, so if things have moved around up here, is there anything important that's changed? Yes. This is a really important addition. Enscape allows you to create custom assets. There's a multitude of resources for those custom assets. You can also, this is really important, you can store your Enscape asset library locally. It's simply done by checking this box. It's about a 3 gig download, but the benefit of this is that when you open the Enscape asset library, they're going to load really, really quickly because they're local on your machine. You can also, as I just mentioned, you can add custom assets, and I've got a few here. We've been toying around with using SketchUp warehouse components and then creating custom assets because I want to place those in Enscape and not put them natively inside the Revit file. So this is 2 really great use cases, and I'll come back to that in a moment with regard to a great tip and trick. Inside the Enscape window, on the left side, what's changed is these are sort of your feature functions, and on the right side are sort of your settings. Nothing more detail about that we need to go into, but I want to show you a couple of really useful ones. First of all, we have a new view management tab, and this allows you to create and select your active document, your favorited views or other views in your Revit project and your design file directly from Enscape. So in the past, what was happening is if you selected a favorited view, the camera would move to a location and it would change time of day. Now the camera is moving to a new location. It's changing the time of day, but it's also respecting the view settings in your Revit project. So for example, if I select one of these favorited views, it's going to isolate this staircase. Or I've got another favorite view here in Revit that I've used. This is a tip. It's using the phase tool to override all the material settings in your Revit project. And I've overridden all the material settings here with a material called basswood to give me the ability to render something in a very nice, natural looking wood kind of tone. Or if we want to go back to the default condition, I can select the default 3D view and we'll go right back to the natural state in the Revit file. So the ability to manage and create these views is now available directly in the Enscape environment. You don't have to jump back to your design tool, and that's a quick and easy way to create the view, favorite the view, assign the view to a view style, and then keep working without interrupting that workflow. The other tool that I want to make you familiar with is view settings management. View settings are where you specify time of day, not time of day, but view style, field of view, and a myriad of other settings. And these view styles are now managed and created right from this little triangle here on the left side of the window. We can create new views. We can then modify the different settings. So your image materials, your atmospheric settings, your sky vault, even your render settings can all be specified here. And then you can create and save that as a preset, which you can also share and load and share with your team members right from this Enscape dialog. So those are the 2 really big changes that happened in Enscape 3. Now let's start to go into some of my favorite techniques. Okay, so I've had the real fortune of working with the Enscape team since probably around July 2015. And over those years, it's really the result of customers asking questions of how would you do this thing? Because Enscape is easy to use, but those of us who use Revit know that Revit has some pretty weird idiosyncrasies at times. And so I want to cover some techniques here where I would say these are best practices really in Revit in order to get the desired results inside of Enscape. So number 1, we're going to talk about using images and setting the origins of images. And for this example, I want to use this. It could be a painting or it could be a TV screen right here in Revit. I'm going to select it in my Revit view and open up this component using the Edit Family dialog, and then I'm going to set this view to realistic mode. Now, this is a common situation. A lot of people prefer to use the decal tool, which I would say the decal tool is host dependent. It's probably not a good practice to use that. What's a better practice is we're going to use the paint tool and apply an image using the paint tool, and then we have to set the origin, and this is the tricky part. So let's start here with the Modify tab. I'm going to remove this material and not really start from scratch, but just start back a little bit. So we're going to take the image off, and then we're going to look at the material properties and notice that I've created a material and finish parameter. We're going to assign that material and finish parameter with the paint tool. And the reason you want to do that, because here's the image itself, but here's the parameter. The reason you want to assign the parameters when this image goes into the project or when this component goes into the project, we want to make sure that the image is parametrically assigned so that we can swap it out with something else quickly and easily. We don't want to have to go through the material editor and scroll through hundreds of materials to try to remember. So now that we've specified this material, you're going to have to go back and obviously change the size of it. And the way that we do that is through the Appearance tab, and you can see that the real world size of this is 4'11" by 3'3". You're going to have to uncheck the aspect ratio and change it to a real world size. Now here's the tip. Don't use the position tool to set the origin. This is going to break in about 3 different ways. Go to your Graphics tab and create a model pattern that corresponds to the size of the image. What Revit does is it automatically coordinates the origin of the image with the intersection of that model pattern. And just like in the project environment, if you have a model pattern in the family editing environment and you move that model pattern, it's going to move the origin of the image, which allows you to very certainly know how that image is going to be placed. So I'm just going to use the Align tool. You don't have to lock it. Actually, if you try to lock it, it's going to give you an error. Go back to realistic mode. That image is set and the origin is certain. We're going to close this. We don't need to save it and just reload it back into the project. This is going to fix the image here, which ultimately is going to fix the image here. So we want to go another step. We want to say, okay, well, what do we do in a low light condition? If we want that image to glow, let's say it's retail signage, directional signage, Revit has the ability to assign self-illumination to any material, and a material can actually be an image. So we're going to go back to this image. We're going to look at the Appearance tab, and notice there's this option for self-illumination. Now, it doesn't have to be a lot. Self-illumination in Enscape is determined by the relative surface area, and this is a 4'11" by 3'3" surface, so it's relatively large. So on a value of 10 to 10,000, I've set it for a value of 5. And if we go back to Enscape and change the lighting condition, you'll know that that's going to appear to glow. And that's how you're going to get very natural looking illumination for your signage and anything that's printed that needs to be illuminated. You're also going to use self-illumination for things like geometry that doesn't correspond to a typical light object in Revit. So what would you use self-illumination for? You use it for things like accent lighting on furniture, and of course things like screen and geometry that needs to illuminate. The last thing with regard to materials is you can add illuminated textures or movie files to your components in Enscape. There's a very specific format that you'll have to use for this, and I tend to keep this format handy. I put it in a notes file so I can copy and quickly paste it into the Identity tab, and you're going to have to paste that value into the Description tab. Now, I've already saved an example here, so I'm just going to select that, copy it, paste it, and then hit the Apply key. What that's going to do is reroute the path of a still image to a movie file. And now if we go back to Enscape, you'll see that we now have a TV show playing inside of Enscape. Well, maybe you don't want TV shows. Maybe you need signage or other information that looks more natural and realistic. Here we have a video game, and it's actually playing the video game like you would expect if you walked up to something like this in the real world. Right? So very, very easy, very, very fast and simple to do. So that's material and image origin, that's self-illumination, and that's animated textures. The next thing I want to show you is scale models. And the reason scale models are important is for the same reason that we create scale drawings in Revit. We need to be able to look at a project and understand the totality of that project. Revit is fantastic for coordinating your information. It's not always clear for communicating information, and great communication has to do with clarity at scale in some cases. Now, how would you create a scale model in Enscape? You would simply export your model from Revit to DWG. You would link it back into a Revit project, and then you can scale it down. That's one of the type parameters, and I've got an example here that's sitting on this table. Once you link in your project and scale it down, you can go past the RGB values that are there as an option, and you can actually overwrite them to create a scale model, right? So all of the detail that's in this file is in the scale model, and if you export it again, it goes to another level of detail. So here you can see that there's a scale model of the scale model inside of the scale model inside of VR. What's a real world application of this? Well, sometimes it's hard to, the great thing about Enscape is you can explore the model in first person, but sometimes we need to be able to review the model in first person of the model in first person so that we can get an understanding of the holistic nature of the design. Well, how would you do that? You export your model from Revit, but you don't have to just export the model once. You can export a multitude of views based on different visual requirements. So here we have an exported view of the first floor plan. We have an exported view of the second floor plan. We even have an exported view just of the structural mechanical systems. And the level of detail is incredible. This is all down to little wheels on the chair. This is the finest level of detail being exported from Revit. Now, where do you host this view? Well, you can create a separate Enscape file or separate Revit file, or you can just put these linked files right back into your project and scale them down. And when your client or you start the review process in VR, you can see the whole design in one place and then use your shortcut views to go to those sections of the design to understand them. So that's one really great option. The other really great option is actually to export your project multiple times, but create larger versions of the project so that you can review them simultaneously. So multiple versions, multiple design options, multiple phases. So what do we got here? Well, we've got a second floor cutaway of this building, and it's about waist high, which is really good because you can see a lot more detail. Well, if we want to accentuate or actually see a larger portion of the model, we can export another version and don't scale it down as far. Or maybe we want to see a cutaway version of the model. That's a great option inside of Enscape, and it's really easy to do. Maybe we want to see multiple versions of the project and not just in plan, right? We don't have to necessarily look down at the floor to see the designs. You can rotate a linked DWG file in Revit, place it on a wall inside of your design environment or your review environment, and actually see these design options live. And you can see them in 3D and live. Now, one of the great things about Revit is when you link in these exported DWG files, number one, it's easy to update because you're just overriding the previous design. And number two, you can modify the materials of that linked file. Now, one of the material parameters that we've discovered is for self-illumination. So can you modify the self-illumination of an exported and imported layer coming from a DWG file? Absolutely. All you're doing is applying self-illumination to that geometry, and Enscape will quickly and easily light it up. Everything from down to screens on keyboards to signage inside of your project to lighting. You can do a site plan in Revit, export it to DWG, link it right back at Enscape, and take all of those little sources of light and give them illumination and create a beautiful site plan that's illuminated in a low light condition. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about is asset linking. So here we are in Revit, and I'm going to select my default task share. I mentioned earlier that Revit is a great way to communicate or a great way to coordinate. So plans, sections, elevations, perspectives, schedules, they're great. Revit's not always a great way to explore and communicate the design. So Enscape has its own series of assets that are used for communicating, I would say, an emotional level of detail, because the Enscape assets are they're not modeled in Revit, and they're modeled to a very high level of detail. So I'm just going to go to the Office tab here, and I'm going to select this chair and place it directly inside of Revit. And this chair is going to look great inside of Enscape. It's going to look very, very detailed. The challenge with the Enscape chair is they don't always look great. They're very, very detailed. So you're going to get that kind of artifact inside of your Revit project. If you use these components directly, it's going to be a little bit confusing. They're not modeled in the right category for very important reasons. So the great thing about the Revit component is it schedules properly, it's clean graphically, we know what it is, but it doesn't have much emotional detail, right? So when we look at these two components side by side from Revit to Enscape, we go, wow, we'd love to have that Enscape component, but we need all the metadata associated to the Revit component. There is a really, really easy way to do this. Go back to your asset library, and if you select a component, you'll notice there's an option to link a Revit family to that Enscape asset. So it's going to open up an asset browser. I'm going to do a quick search for this task chair, select that family and type, select OK, and that's it. Enscape will link that asset to your Revit family. And when you go back to Enscape, you're going to see this. So now you can keep your Revit files nice and light. If you place a new Revit family in the project, you're going to see multiple instances. If we move this instance inside of Revit, it's going to immediately move inside of Enscape. Okay, so that's a quick overview of why would you use Enscape, what are the value propositions, what's changed in the release 3.0, and then some really personally my favorite useful kinds of tips and tricks with regard to material origins, self-illumination, animated textures, scale model review and creation, and finally asset linking. Rich, I guess that's it. I should go back to you, buddy.
Well, again, thank you, Phil. That was fantastic. And there's just so much cool stuff that you can do with Enscape. For ID8 Software, it's obviously id8software.com. Eagle Point Pinnacle Series, it's eaglepoint.com. And for Enscape, it's enscape3d.com for more information. And now what I'd like to do is here, we'll switch this. And I'd like to kind of switch it over to Sash and see if there's some questions for any of us, any of the presenters, myself or Phil or Steve, that you think would be relevant for the entire audience.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks. Thanks, you guys. Great presentation. Hey, Phil, I have to say that whole modeling of a model reminds me of Inception. So I thought that was kind of cool.
It does, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah.
We call it BIMception.
Yeah, exactly. This one actually is for both Steve and Phil. We did get a question about hardware usage and also memory usage. So like one of the questions, especially for Steve, you demoed the part in Revit where it will bring up kind of the training information as you kind of click on each of the commands. Are there any stringent hardware requirements? Does it use a lot of CPU at all or anything like that?
No, there's no extra requirements whatsoever. It is a very, very light plugin that goes into Revit, and we have had no instances of communication from customers where that has taxed anybody's system. So if you have a powerful enough system to run Revit, which of course you would need to, then you are fine from the Pinnacle series run.
Okay, fantastic. Now, Phil, I'm assuming on their end there's going to be more CPU requirements, because one of the things is, Autodesk kind of sets these benchmarks, right? And of course, I always tell on my end, get as much of everything as you can, because I like to plan out for a few years of keeping my hardware. Phil, on your side, what are some of the hardware requirements, and what do you recommend? In addition to kind of the baseline Autodesk requirements.
Yeah, so Enscape is not so much CPU as intensive as it is GPU intensive. The minimum requirements are a discrete graphic card with 2 gigs of RAM. There is nothing more expensive than being embarrassed in front of a customer. I would recommend personally a graphic card with 8 gigs of RAM. The discussion on which one to get is more expensive than just getting a decent graphic card with 8 gigs of RAM. You don't need the quote unquote professional graphic cards. Actually, you want a graphic card that produces very fast frame rate and very fast processing. And ironically, these are the less expensive consumer gaming cards. So an NVIDIA 2080 RTX is fantastic. If you have a little more budget, go with the 2080 Ti or Titan. And now it's the 3080 series are coming out from NVIDIA, and the 3070, 3080 RTX cards are available in a laptop and workstation form factor. So that's what I would recommend, at a minimum 2080 RTX.
Fantastic. That's great. Thank you for that. Steve, we just got a question in for you. Is there a package available that's suitable for individuals looking to improve their skills? It's a great question.
Yeah, there actually is. So what I showed today was what we call, Pinnacle Series. Pinnacle Series is typically geared towards architectural organizations, right? With the staff members and a whole team of people. For just individuals, people on their own, students, etc., we have something called Pinnacle Lite. We kind of took that from, AutoCAD Lite, Revit Lite, etc. So Pinnacle Lite, that is perfect for very, very small organizations or individuals. So look up Pinnacle Lite.
Awesome, thank you. And from the same person, this is Mike that asked the question. Phil, do you have any demos or video links that are geared towards us, quote unquote, boring MEP guys?
Oh, yes. The MEP guys are loving Enscape because they don't often need to see a real world material setting. They need to see the analytic setting that's usually defined by the type parameters of the system. And Enscape has an option, the general settings, not show the appearance value, but the RGB value that's specified in Revit. If you go to my LinkedIn authors page, you'll find 5 years of best practice documents, and they're in there. And if you have any questions, just reach out to me.
Fantastic. Richard, we got a question from our friend Tesla. Can we create new signage types that set the sizes and also path the images for signage? And we also want to make sure the names of the images are named properly. Let's see here. Duplicating material assets. All right, so I get this is a multi-question, so we maybe want to break it down and take some of it offline, but maybe we could talk about creating new types.
Yeah, the first one, BIM Link can absolutely create new types for family types. And actually, Sash, I think you have a recent webinar or a video on that, correct?
Correct. Yep. Real recent.
so I will plug yours. But yeah, for instance, let's just say I'm going to use I don't know, doors, or it could be signage as an example. Yeah. You've got that family within your project, and like a type catalog, you can use BIM Link to say, okay, well, I need this at, you've got length and width and height of the sign as an example, and all of those could be then you could create multiple types that could drive the geometry within Revit. So then when you import that back from ID8 BIM Link or from Excel and create those new type characteristics, then it's going to say that, okay, now I've got this sign at these 15 or 20 new parameters that I've just developed. So absolutely that can be done. But I would encourage you to look at the video that we have online for creating new types.
Fantastic, thank you. And then Steve, we did get another question. Can you get reports out of Pinnacle series? Let's see here, showing the user's training progress. It's actually a really good question.
Yeah, that's a crucial thing of any learning system for that matter. You want to make sure you can hold your people accountable. If you're going to invest in a system like Pinnacle Series to train your staff, you want to make sure you can manage that and hold them accountable. So we have really, really detailed reports on all sorts of different things, from how are they progressing through the actual structured courses versus are they just using your document you uploaded 3 months ago? Are they using your BIM manual that you uploaded 3 months ago, whatever it may be? So yeah, we have all those details in reporting for sure. Good question.
Awesome, thank you.
And I also thought I just wanted to tell like a little story I thought was really interesting. A couple of weeks ago, all three of us were presenting for a large architecture firm. I don't have permission to use their name, but based in New York, but really all around the world, had kind of like a mini Autodesk University that they were doing a technical update. And they were doing presentations on Pinnacle, they were doing presentations on Enscape, they were doing presentations on ID8 software. So I just thought it was a really nice synergy that this particular firm did have all of these assets, and we're showing how you could use all of them sort of together, which was nice.
Fantastic. And then I'll just finalize this with the questions. For those of you that also ask questions, if there's some more detailed information, we'll all get back to you on that. So we'll kind of dish these questions out to the appropriate presenters, and we'll get back to you on that. So thanks, and Richard, I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you so much, Sash. Well, I'm 1 minute after the what we call it on the half hour, so I have 31 minutes after the hour. So I want to thank everyone for their participation, and especially thank Steve and thank Phil for presenting the great technology that they have or that they're representing along with ID8 software. And I really do think that all of these tools are indispensable for BIM managers around the world. So again, I just want to thank you very much for your participation, and thank you everyone on the line for your time and attention. And like I said, this will be available as a recording, and we'll be following up for any additional questions that you have. So from Boston, Massachusetts, from Iowa, from North Carolina, we want to thank you.
Thanks, Rich.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep.
Oh, and Portland. I'm sorry, Sash, Portland.
No worries. No worries.
All right. Take care, everyone.
See you.